Hello, everyone. My name is Trevor, and I am the Communications Manager with the Canadian Cancer Survivor Network. Thank you very much for joining me today and joining our guest. If you are new to the webinars, the CCSN, the Canadian Cancer Survivor Network, we're an organization working with cancer patients and survivors to learn about the complexity of our health system, connect with others to plan action, and act on those plans to create better outcomes and healthy survivorship. And if you want to see how we're doing that and a whole bunch of other information, news, events, information, ways to participate in research, please visit our website, survivornet.ca. Now, this webinar is being recorded and will be available on YouTube. A link will be provided with the email that you registered with. We will have a quick Q&A session at the end, but if you have a question, feel free to type it into the chat. We will definitely be looking at those, and we will be answering those questions as we go on. Now for our guest, a return guest speaker that we have been working with quite a bit. Dr. Rob Rutledge is a radiation oncologist in Halifax, Nova Scotia, specializing in breast, prostate, and pediatric cancers, and is an associate professor in the Faculty of Medicine at Dalhousie University. His passion is empowering people affected by cancer and has delivered hundreds of public talks and webinars, along with over 60 retreats and day-long seminars to thousands of cancer survivors, including many here at the Canadian Cancer Survivor Network. Rob has received a Cancer Care Nova Scotia Award for Excellence in Patient Care, and Doctors Nova Scotia presented him with a Health Promotion Award in recognition of his contribution to physician health and health promotion for cancer patients. So without further ado, we hand it over to Rob Rutledge, the power of reframing on the cancer journey.
Thank you so much, Trevor, for that. People can almost certainly see my screen. If not, let me know. And it's always great to work with the Canadian Cancer Survivor Network. Hats off to all of you for joining or listening to this video afterwards. This is really a key skill in the cancer journey, because how you think, how you work with your thoughts will make a tremendous difference in your quality of life, and ultimately, you know, your stress levels and then your physical health. It all is one big package, one holographic picture. So I'm happy that you're here, and I'm really hoping that you'll have a good experience trying to work with this. So first of all, we're not trying to make difficult thoughts and feelings go away. I think it's just impossible. And to try to be happy, for instance, is a difficult thing to do. And I don't kind of recommend it. Instead, the philosophy is going to be that difficult thoughts, difficult feelings are going to come up, and that we can work with them. We can learn from them. We can reframe them in certain situations. But the thoughts can also be very, very helpful for us as well. So we're going to accept the normality of having a cancer diagnosis and the stresses that go along with that. The point is not to try to struggle against your thoughts, because that just creates a kind of a second level of difficulty. So instead, we choose to live our lives in a way that's most important to us, and what we call a values-based life. And we do that, we engage in the world even when the difficult thoughts and feelings show up. And so we're living our lives fully, despite, you know, the roller coaster of emotions and thoughts that come with that. Lastly, I'd say to you that this idea of being compassionate to yourself is the best way of making a psychological transition. So I'm going to be, in more than one way, talking about this kind of heartfulness towards oneself as a way to make that progression. So I think about it, you know, if you have a cancer diagnosis, what do you want? And your thoughts and emotions and how you work with the world, your perception of the world, will influence all these. Obviously, we're talking about maximizing your chance of recovery, or maximizing your chance of being cured, or maximizing your longevity. I'm not putting in the emotional part of this. Instead, I'm going to talk about functioning better. So when you decide that you want to live that full life, that engaged life, then you function better, you think more clearly, and ultimately it leads to a more meaningful life. So no matter what your external circumstances, you can always choose to try to live more towards that kind of sense of connection and the values that you really believe in. So we can connect more deeply. And I'd say, and one of the reframing ideas is that no matter where you are in your journey, no matter what difficulties you're facing, you can say to yourself, I'm growing from this. I'm getting stronger psychologically, spiritually. I'm getting wiser from this. So that's the first reframe, is to understand that there's always opportunity to love and connect with others, always opportunity to grow. And simply putting yourself in that kind of growth mindset is healing in and of itself. So that's the first reframe that we can talk about here. Okay. I also want to just put the context of what I call integrative oncology, getting the best care from the medical system, combining that otherwise. And so part of understanding is understanding your own thought process, is what you can do to do that. But getting the best care from the medical system, how you perceive the medical system can actually influence the care that you get from it. You want to empower yourself. So those are the kind of body-based healthy habits. Again, our perceptions can influence how we actually deliver that to ourselves. Really, we are working at the level of the mind in this talk. So this is the reframing, stress reduction, mindfulness piece of this, working with difficult thoughts and emotions. And last perspective is like then nurturing a spiritual perspective to your life, right? Which can transcend any type of external environment, external situation. You can have a spiritual perspective on that. So again, that is the ultimate in the reframing process. Okay, so this is what I want to cover today. I'm going to go through a number of examples, and I'm teaching around what they call acceptance and commitment training, ACT training. So I'm going to review some of that material, talk about setting intention, mindfulness, and then this main skill of fusing with our thoughts, which is kind of getting caught up or entangled or hooked by our thoughts, and then kind of being able to let go of that, kind of unhook ourselves, the diffusion process. And I'll end with a different set of skills called cognitive behavioral therapy, which I also call reframing, which is a different way to work with those difficult thoughts and emotions. Okay, so let's get right into this. So the first point is thoughts are normal. Thoughts give us information, and we can glean the information from the thought, or we can recognize that the thought is actually not that helpful and just let that thought go, not kind of buy into that thought or follow that thought. So the medical system sucks, right? So that thought can come out, and you could say, yeah, I've been, there's been some circumstances within my journey in which the medical system didn't serve me well at all, right? And so you can learn from that, say, well, what can I do next time? How can I get better care? Maybe I need to advocate it, and maybe I need to use these other skills in the circumstance. But the thought by itself, if you're stuck in that thought, it's not going to be helpful in terms of being able to work with your healthcare providers. This is too much, I can't do it, this kind of sense of overwhelm. And again, I'm trying to be realistic. Sometimes you are going to be feeling overwhelmed, and you are going to feel like you can't kind of cope in the circumstance, whatever cope means. But kind of perseverating, kind of get stuck in that thought is not going to serve you. So it's not about the thoughts being true or false. It's more about, if you allow yourself to kind of go there and stay there and get stuck there, are you able to do the things that you want to do? Do you want to live your life? Or although nobody understands me. Well, you may be alone. Maybe few people understand you. However, again, it's like, okay, well, maybe that's what's happening. Maybe I'm feeling lonely. Maybe I need to reach out a bit more. So it's a starting point to kind of learn and grow from, but not to get stuck in. I have to be the strong one. It's more of kind of a self-based core belief. And we're going to try to break that one down a little bit. The other one, I have to stay positive, right? I have to be happy and, in that kind of positive state of mind. I can't let myself get depressed, because if that happens, then the cancer is going to grow. And this kind of the whole process of struggle around trying to keep up something that's not realistic. So we're going to go through some of these thoughts and how reframing can help put this in better perspective and make you more functional and healthier psychologically. I'm working off Russ Harris's work. He wrote a great book called The Happiness Trap, but acceptance and commitment training. So I'm really drawing on his work, which is very, very wise work. And it's also kind of scientifically based as well. The first idea is that we are a product of evolution. And we humans are successful because we plan for the future. We think about the hypothetical situations that might happen in the future and try to mitigate against the possibilities. And yes, that has its place, but obviously if you take anything to an extreme, it can be unhelpful. In the same way, we learn from the past, that difficult thing happened to me yesterday, what could I have done differently? So we're not saying in any way that those things are bad things. Like, we humans do these things and it's been helpful for us. The thoughts that come out can be helpful or not helpful, right? Our mind is secreting these thoughts nonstop. Part of the issue, though, is that we have a negativity bias. So think of the last 10 interactions with your loved one. And 5 could be neutral, 4 could have been very positive, 1 could have been, a little argument type thing. What are you thinking about at 11 o'clock at night? You're thinking about the kind of one negative thing that happened. Again, we're wired towards that negativity. There's 2 aspects to your mind, however. So your mind is secreting thoughts. The thoughts are just kind of popping up. This is what minds do, is just that they're thinking all the time. But there's also another part of your mind that is observing or aware of the thoughts that are thinking. And that observing part of yourself is actually the wiser part of yourself. It gives you the choice of how you want to tap into what's actually happening and what you want to choose to actually follow. Right? So the observing mind gives you choice. And then lastly, just to put this in context, the emotional response is normal. We humans emote as well. And so I'd say it's also healthy to mourn your losses. Getting a cancer diagnosis, often expectations are shattered, right? All this, how you perceive the hypothetical future to have kind of unrolled, is no longer exists, right? And so when that happens, it's normal to mourn, and it takes time. You can't force that. And it doesn't make sense just to slap on the happy mask. It's allowing oneself to actually feel that is okay. Not to get stuck in it, but to feel it, let it take its natural course and move on. In the same way, you can have frustrations and disappointment with the medical system. That's okay. That's normal. That's expected. And then you decide, well, how do I want to respond? How do I want to engage the medical system from now on? And so to be stuck in disappointment isn't going to help in the circumstance. Okay, acceptance and commitment training. So it focuses on psychological flexibility, which I'll explain in a moment. And even more important, living a more meaningful life. It's really about how you decide to engage in the world. And so no matter what your external circumstance, so you could be bedridden listening to this talk right now, and you still have choice as to how you're going to interact with the next person. How much of your meaning are you going to bring into those interactions, right? And the idea is that the thoughts and emotions are not the problem, because that's going to happen to us. We are going to go through difficulties. Difficult things are going to happen in our lives. It's just, that's the human experience. If we're going to be born, we're going to die. Things are going to go wrong. That's the expectation. So we can just understand that as a first reframe. Like, this is also like the biggest possible reframe, is expect that difficult things are going to happen in the future. And so you don't have to be so disappointed when it happens. The issue around the act is the struggle against, no, I shouldn't have that thought. I shouldn't have those emotions. I'm feeling sad. No, I can't feel sad. This is not good for me. And kind of all that struggle back and forth. And I call this the second arrow. It's as if someone has shot an arrow and kind of got you in the chest. And what you do is you grab the arrow, you pull it out, and you stab yourself 5 more times with the arrow. Right. So the initial arrow hurts. I'm not trying to minimize the difficulty that we all go through. I'm not trying to, say just feel happier. The first arrow really hurt, but why stab oneself more and more? Why hurt yourself unnecessarily? So it's the adventitious pain that's the issue. So feeling good is not the goal as much as it's about acting in a way that's consistent with your values, right? So it's like, and even when you're feeling shitty, you can decide to do the right thing for you. Like you can still decide to connect with your loved ones. You can still decide to do the meaningful activities. You can still decide to take care of yourself, right? So despite the difficulties, you're still doing what's best in your circumstance. Okay, the ACT flexagon, you can see in the dark print is kind of the positive side, and in the kind of the pinkish print is the not what we're after in the circumstance. So up top is being present. We'll talk about kind of mindfulness. The opposite to that is being totally stuck in the past and not being present to what's actually happening. The present moment is where you can love and connect and live your life fully. In the same way, worrying so much about the future takes you away from actually engaging in the present. So that's obvious. The acceptance piece, I don't actually like that word as much because it sounds like you're just kind of giving up, accepting. It's more like allowing would be the better description. You're allowing yourself to feel whatever you're feeling, think whatever, allowing the thoughts to be there and not struggling against them. So and the opposite to that is trying to escape from your thoughts and feelings, which is the experiential avoidance. In the bottom left corner is the diffusion, which is what we're actually talking about today, this idea of if you get fused with your thoughts, you're just thinking from your thoughts perspective, you're 100% caught up in seeing the world from your thoughts and not being able to see a bigger perspective. So that's what we're actually working on. Self is context. Probably the best example of that is I'm the strong one. Like you're so stuck in your role and your thought and your definition of yourself that you can't see yourself as the mechanism that experiences life, and that there's lots of possibility there, which is part of the psychological flexibility. The values and committed action on the right-hand side there, which is really the crux of this. How can you live your values? How can you take action to live out those values? So that's the goal within the ACT model. So acceptance. So again, instead of the word acceptance, because it really sounds like resignation, it's more like just being open to whatever is happening, even the difficult stuff, the unwanted experiences, the feelings, the urges, the sensations. You don't have to like your experience is another thing. Like just when you're feeling crappy, you don't have to like that you're feeling crappy. You just have to recognize that I'm feeling crappy. And then you can kind of take a step from there. So that's the acceptance piece. It's like starting afresh, seeing life just as it is. Because from my perspective, it's most important to see the truth, see the reality, and then try to work from reality. Otherwise, you're not getting as much information as you like and you should have. So the opposites would be fighting against, no, I have to be the strong one. No, I'm feeling depressed and I'm just not doing this right. And so you're feeling guilty about, not doing it right. And then you're angry at yourself for not doing it right. And it's like, there's the kind of fighting back and forth with that. One of the metaphors that I like is this idea of your thoughts that are like written down on a page and the rest of the world and what's most important to you is out there. And when you're fused with your thoughts, like the page is up over your face, so you're totally inside of your thoughts and you can't see anything but that. But then fighting is like pushing the piece of paper away, the thoughts away, and trying to keep it as far away from you as possible all the time. And I can tell you right now, after about 2 minutes of doing this, it's pretty tiring. The alternative is just to lay the piece of paper down on your lap so you can actually use your hands. And so the piece of paper is still there, right? The thoughts are still there, but it's not kind of running your life. Running away would be, you're feeling sad. You're going through a sad spell in your life, and running away would be distracting yourself. So I'm just going to, drink or play video games or binge watch Netflix, et cetera, et cetera. So that would be the other kind of way of not kind of acknowledging or accepting this. The other one around fighting, a really good metaphor around that is when you have one of those airfield balls and you try to submerge it in the swimming pool, you're like pushing it down. It takes a lot of energy to kind of push it underneath the water. And no matter what you do, the ball is going to kind of pop up to the surface again. So instead of fighting against the ball of difficult thoughts and emotions, just let it be. The ball can float on the surface of the pool, and you can like do other things and not kind of struggle against that, those thoughts. Okay. So the idea is we create room. That's the acceptance, the allowing piece for the thoughts and emotions to come and go as they choose. Like, it's not a bad thing to have difficult thoughts and emotions. Yes, if you get depressed and you're stuck in depression for a long period of time, then yes, you should get some treatment for it. But for the most part, we can allow those difficult thoughts and emotions to kind of come and go at their own pace and still choose to work forward there. And so ultimately, this is about taking action, even when you don't like the experience of whatever thought and emotion has come out. And then by taking action, paradoxically, you are feeling better from it. Okay, so the other way to talk about psychological flexibility, which is, it's also defined as mindful, values-guided action. And there's the be present, right, which is the kind of mindfulness piece, being open to your own experience. Opening up, which is, we're going to talk about diffusion, and then really focusing on doing what matters. So those are the kind of parts of this. Okay, the question for all of you. So these are the top 20 values from around the world, right? So this is an international list of the top 20 values. And I would ask you, what are your top 3 or top 5 values from this? So for instance, for me, being kind and acting with integrity, making a difference in the world, those are the things that I kind of pray for first thing in the morning. I want to be a clear teacher. I want to be helpful to people. So that's what I'm trying to embody. That's what I'm trying to manifest in my life. I'm just going to give you a longer list of values so you can kind of look through here as well and just kind of think about what from this long list, what kind of stands out for you. Right? What is important? What do you value? How do you want this to be more of in your life? Right? Again, it's choice as to what's important. Okay. So then I do that in a few ways. Like, I call this setting your intention, because you want to consciously, deliberately choose how you want to live. And so there's different ways to ask this question. So I ask it as, how do you want to be in this world? Or what do you hope of yourself? We could also say, what's important to you? What really matters deep in your heart? How do you want to treat yourself, others, and the world around you? Like, how do you want to be? You have this life, you have this opportunity, you shine a light within your corner of the universe. How do you want that to manifest? And I see it as a ritual. So I do that in the morning, do a meditation technique. Usually use a heart rate variability monitor. My wife and I have been doing that recently. 10, 15 minutes, come into that space, and I put my hands up and I go like, please let me be helpful. Let me be kind. Let me be the best possible physician that I can be. Let me make a difference in this world. So I'm kind of praying in some sense, right? So I'm doing that as a ritual. You could also do that. I mean, I did it going into this presentation, 15 minutes ago. It's like praying to myself, please let me deliver this in a way that's really helpful for people. So I'm really thinking about it. I mean, you could do that going into a difficult conversation or a medical appointment. Or if you're really good in the middle of the chaos, when you've kind of fused with your thoughts and you're kind of stuck, you're hooked, you decide, no, actually, I don't want to act like this. I don't want to be like this. I actually want to live out my values despite feeling stressed and upset and overwhelmed. Like, how can I do that? Okay, so contact with the present moment. be here now. And so it's this idea of paying attention. So this is, you're kind of starting to hear mindfulness, flexibly paying attention. There's a lot happening in this moment, right? And sometimes you want to narrow and really sustain your attention. Like you're talking to your physician, you want to actually concentrate on what your physician's saying. Sometimes you may be walking in the park, and then you can kind of broaden your perspective and see different things and shift and, enjoy that moment because you're using your mindfulness in a different way. You don't always have to be super micro-focused. So it's depending on what's most useful, right? If there's suddenly kind of like an emergency or there's some problem, you want to be able to quickly focus and take care of that situation quickly. So it could be in the physical world out there. It could be an inner process. You're watching your own inner process. What are those emotions? Oh, did I just say that to myself? Oh, that's very interesting. Thought's very interesting, right? So again, you're like, but it's in the moment, right? Or both. So you're fully engaging in your experience because that's where life is happening. Okay, so we think about mindfulness, and Russ Harris defines this as a diverse set of skills. So mindfulness is like, just in some sense, like being present with whatever's happening, but also like savoring experience, like, the mindful raisin eating or walking in the park or seeing the beautiful eyes of your grandchild. It's like, oh, you're like really connected there. Or the sense of observing, being able to watch your own thoughts, or staying centered, grounded, calm, peaceful. Those are all diverse ways to kind of interact with the present moment. I like this expression, awarenessing, right? So mindfulness is not about thinking your way or defining your experience. It's more like being able to just be present. You're awarenessing your current experience. It's an attitude of openness, curiosity. When you get into that state, you naturally will have a relaxation response. There's a kind of sense of openness, like what's actually happening here? Wow, this is kind of neat, this moment of life right now. And that sense of curiosity and openness, right? Even as I say that, I can feel that kind of grounding. I get a kind of relaxation response out of it. And then obviously flexibly changing your attention to whatever is needed. And lastly, it's this quality of kindness, that your default state is heartfulness. Your default state is connection. Your default state is love, right? And so that mindfulness also means heartfulness. It's not just a kind of cerebral thing. It comes from the heart. I heard that the monks, when they ask them where your mind is, they put their hand over their chest. It's heartfulness. Okay, so then we need to, if we're going to do this activity, work with the difficult thoughts, it's very important to be mindful of their thoughts and use those kind of diverse skills as the thoughts are coming up. And one of the ways I think about this is, imagine there was a magical computer that could type out 24/7 exactly what you're thinking. So just like, I'm having a good day, this is lousy, blah, blah, blah. You just like, it's coming out as one big print. And then at the end of the week, you go back and read the transcript, right? And so then you can be able to see, well, what do you actually think? And frankly, we have a lot of repetitive, boring thoughts, but there's times where we're quite stressed and, we start to exaggerate, et cetera, start to get quite negative, et cetera. But it's this idea of like, as you're thinking, be able to watch your thoughts happening. So, and often if we're stressed, we fuse, meaning we get caught up. We think that that's the only reality. This is total BS. You just kind of get stuck here, thinking your thoughts, can only see your thoughts in that moment as opposed to the bigger picture. If we can notice we're stuck in our thoughts, then we can choose to kind of gain some distance. The thought doesn't have to go away, but it's just like, there's the thought, there's the awarenessing, and that's kind of diffusing. It takes the sting out of some of those unhelpful thoughts and also gives us this opportunity to stop and choose as to how we're going to respond. We don't have to follow every thought. We certainly don't have to believe every thought. Just because you think it doesn't necessarily mean it's true. There can be elements of truth in every thought, but you don't have to choose to fuse with it. Okay, so the metaphor that I'm kind of using as we're going forward is this idea that everything that's important to you in your life is kind of out and around you, right? It's what you love to do. It's your values. It's the things you need to do, like your responsibilities, your chores, it's the logistics. It's like the life is there, right? It's out there. And then your hands represent your thoughts and feelings. So you slowly cover your eyes with your hands, right? And then what happens is when you're fused like that, you're so consumed in your thoughts that you can barely see between the gaps in the figures. You're not really able to see the world very clearly. And so how does that represent it? And typically what we'd say is we feel disconnected, right? So when we're like this, we're not really connected with what's most important to us. Nor is it hard to see exactly what's happening or what we should be doing in the next moment, right? We kind of get stuck in this kind of closed state. So the diffusion part of this is to set our hands in our lap. Our hands are still there. The thoughts are still there, but we can see what's actually happening. And despite the thoughts, we can choose to take the step forwards. So again, allowing yourself to have a gap or a space between you and your thoughts and your choices. And so the whole idea of diffusion is to say, well, how do you set your hands on your lap? And there's lots and lots and lots of different techniques. So I'm going to use the sentence. So the thought comes, you're going along there, you're in a difficult situation, you think to yourself, I can't cope, right? And so that would be fusion. I can't cope, I can't cope, I can't cope, I can't cope. And, so you're kind of stuck, closed down. One of the ways to do that is just to say, I'm just having the thought that I can't cope, right? So just being able to label it in some sense. Well, that's a thought. I'm just having a thought that I can't cope. Even when I say that, it kind of takes some of the power away from that particular thought. Or I'm noticing, there's the awarenessing, I'm having a thought that I can't cope, right? So again, it's the muscle of awareness, the muscle of mindfulness is watching that thought. Or you can talk to your mind, you can call your mind George. George, thank you for that thought, right? So again, with the realization that that's just a thought, that you don't actually have to buy into it. So thank you, mind, for that thought. Or there are different kind of visualizations. The I can't cope thought you can place on a balloon. The balloon can kind of float away. Now the balloon doesn't disappear, right? It's not like the balloon is no longer existent. It's just a thought that's kind of bubbled out there and it's not obstructing your vision right now. Or there's a beautiful meditation on YouTube. You find Leaves on a Stream, where the visualization is that you're setting your thoughts atop of the leaves and the leaves kind of carry the thoughts along the stream. Again, gaining some distance from your thoughts. When you're really kind of stuck in a story and you don't want to kind of go after individual thoughts, you can actually just say, that's a story. That's the I can't cope story. How old is that story, for instance? Or, aha, there's the I can't story. I can't cope story again. Again, it's bringing distance and allowing you a perspective, setting your hands down on your lap in the circumstance. Okay, so far, I've been working with acceptance and commitment training, that thoughts aren't a problem, that there's oftentimes wisdom in our thoughts, but we don't have to struggle against our thoughts. We don't have to change our thoughts. We're definitely not trying to be happy. What we're trying to do is just act in a way that's appropriate in the circumstance. This is a new technique. So the next part of this is called cognitive behavioral therapy, or what I would call reframing your thoughts. It's not like one is better than the other. It's just like different circumstances, you can use it in different ways. They use some of the same principles. So the idea of around CBT is that oftentimes it's our thoughts that influence how we actually feel. And the thoughts can be rules and assumptions and underneath that core beliefs, but oftentimes those kind of virtual, like how you set up your own game causes you the difficult emotions. And if we can work with the thoughts in a wise and compassionate, we can actually change the thoughts, will change the emotion. So the example is, I'm useless leads to this sense of depression. I'm no good. It's no use. You get stuck in that thought and it leads to depression. So whereas if you can actually see the truth, like, I guess the truth for me is that each of us has an intrinsic beauty and strength. That's the truth for me. That's the reality. If we can understand that and believe that, there would be less depression. Not that there'd be no depression, but it just that, if you could understand that and feel that for yourself, see the truth for yourself, then you'd be less likely to be depressed. Okay. I'm going to go through technique. And part of it is understanding that when we get overwhelmed and stressed, we often regress in terms of how we think. So there's what they call the cognitive distortions, and all or nothing thinking, like, you're stubbing your toe, it's going to be a bad day. It's 100% bad all the time. So that's a kind of over generalization, or the mental filter disqualifying the positive, magnifying the negative. It's all kind of the same thing of this kind of exaggeration. Jumping to conclusion, if this happens, I know that's going to happen. It's like fortune teller error. Emotional reasoning, I'm feeling upset. There must be something wrong out there. Like something else, something that's to blame for my feeling upset right now. The should statements are really around how we kind of set up the rules and assumptions within our lives, the kind of societal expectations and so on. So those are also malleable. Labeling and mislabeling. Labeling is like calling something 100% what it is, like concretizing it or freezing it. That person's an idiot, so they're 100% idiot, nothing but, and never could be anything but idiot, would be a labeling distortion. And personalization is really the me story. It's all about me. I'm in an office situation. I'm looking from far across the room. I see some people chatting at the photocopier, and they're kind of having a little bit of laugh. Well, they must be laughing about me. So that would be a kind of personalization example. Okay. So the takeaway is that you can change the way you think, and you can change your underlying beliefs, and especially if you can integrate wisdom into that process. So that would change the thought patterns. And then ultimately it changes how you see yourself in the world and others. And then you can feel better, function better, and be more effective, right? So it's a possibility as you kind of work with whatever's coming up. So Stephen Byrne taught this 3-column technique. You'll see up top is the situation, which is just the raw reality. You are listening to this video right now as the raw reality. You might have some thoughts about this video, like this has nothing to do with my life. So that could be a thought about the situation, which is like kind of separate from the situation, right? And then the mindfulness piece is being able to recognize that we're thinking, and that our thinking doesn't necessarily 100% represent reality, right? Our thinking can be distorted, especially when we're stressed. And then there's the middle column. You start to work with your thoughts using the wise, kind of parental part of your thinking. And lastly is the reframing. It's like the grandmother, the wise grandmother voice in your mind that can acknowledge what's happening with a kind of sense of heartfulness and kindness. So it's not like trying to slap you into seeing things different. It's more like, oh, this is a hard situation. I hear you. And then looking from a bigger perspective, and then being encouraging oneself. And then I put the act part of it is like acting according to your values would be the kind of last part of this, to put the kind of two sides together. Okay, so it's easiest for me to kind of take you through examples. So this is a woman who's getting chemotherapy for cancer. She's going for a cure. The chemotherapy is hard, both physically and psychologically. So I haven't exaggerated in any way or form. And she's tired and she's emotionally irritable. And so that's normal. It's expected. That's what happens to people when they go through chemotherapy. Now, on top of that reality, she puts in a thought. She starts to overlay something that is not helpful for her. And the thought would be, it's no use. I don't have the strength to get through this. Now, yes, there are times when you decide it's not worth doing the chemotherapy because your body is not able to kind of cope with it. But in this situation, her doctor believes that she can actually get through this and she's actually doing very well. But she's telling herself it's no use. I don't have the strength to get through this. Right. So first thing, mindful, watch that. Did I just say that to myself? Do I believe that? Right. So you're starting to question. Those are thoughts. Thoughts don't necessarily represent the truth. So what emotions follow that way of thinking? I don't have the strength to get through this. So it's kind of depression, despair that will kind of ramp down the energy of the body, kind of like you lose your life force energy. She's actually getting self-fulfilling prophecy there. Is it helpful to think like this? No, it is actually harmful, right? So regardless if it's hard or not, it's not helping her. How's it exaggerated? How's it not quite right from a logical perspective? How would you argue against this in a court of law? It's no use. Well, the first thing is, every time she gets a course of chemotherapy, she's bumping up her chance of cure. So to say it's no use is actually not true. I don't have the strength to get through this. Well, in this circumstance, she is actually getting through it. So that one's actually not true either. But no, she is feeling overwhelmed, right? And so we go to the kind and rational response. So the wisdom, the soft voice. So acknowledge this is difficult. Look at a bigger perspective. Like she's trying to live all her chemo in the next 5 minutes, right? Let's just take this one step at a time. So not to say that this is the best reframe. It's just one of the reframes we came up with. Who says you always have to be strong, right? There's the allowing piece of the ACT therapy. It's like, okay, I'm feeling a little down. I can just be with this. I don't have to change this. I don't have to define this. Sometimes to cry and fall apart is the best thing to do. Then it seems to find an inner strength or higher power. Again, it's this idea of just like letting go into the circumstance. Maybe she needs to have a bath. Maybe she needs to have a nap and she can talk to herself. Like how would a good friend talk to her? It's like, I hear you. This is tough, but let's just take this a day at a time. You may feel better tomorrow. Let's just see what happens. Right. So you're using your wisdom without forcing or being a certain space. Okay, so you're reflecting back and there were some delays in diagnosis. This is the next example. So you went to the emergency department. They said nothing's there. You went back a week later. They did a scan. And yet, sure enough, there was something. And that started the whole diagnosis. And you had to wait a while for the surgeon and biopsy and all that stuff. So there were delays in the diagnosis. So that's just the reality, right? On top of that, so that's happened. There's the truth. There's the reality. On top of that, then you put this label on the situation. The medical system sucks. I'm going to argue that, the medical system isn't, perfect, but to continue to stay stuck there is not going to be helpful. So to be able to see it especially if you swear in your mind, sucks. That's the point where you kind of jump in. So when you say that to yourself, it creates a kind of stress reaction. Your body has a stress reaction. It sucks some of the energy. It's not fully helpful. You want to say the medical system has its deficiencies and I need to continue to advocate for myself, but that's different than the medical system sucks. And how is it exaggerated then? If you believe that, it means that 100% of the medical system is sucky 100% of the time. Then every single person in the medical system sucks as well, right? So you're seeing that exaggeration. And that's how I'm going to treat that next healthcare professional that I see. It's a sucky system, isn't it? And that's not going to help you. So again, you acknowledge, you see a bigger perspective, you encourage yourself, and then you act in a way that's helpful for you. And so the reframe could be, this is frustrating, but I can learn how to get the best care from what they have to offer, right? So I'm going to get the best care from the medical system, and I can really make a difference by empowering my body. So I'm going to take my proactive role and do my best to do everything to give myself the best chance of recovery. there's the act part of it. You're going to do what's necessary to fulfill your meaning and purpose. Okay, I meet her about once per month. She's lovely. She comes in different forms. Sometimes she's part of a religious community and she does a lot of volunteer work around that. She lives alone. She has about 8 cats. And she's lovely. You like hanging out with her because she's a very, very positive person, right? But she's in the midst of her treatment. She's all alone and she needs a ride to the cancer center. And yesterday you offered a ride to her, but she, no, I don't need that. That's what she said to you. She thinks to herself, I hate asking for help. I'm the freaking one that takes care of everybody else. I can't bear needing their help. I'll handle this myself. Why aren't people phoning me? Okay, so you know I'm exaggerating. I know I'm kind of overdoing the persona. It's the independent person, obviously. When she talks to herself, as I say, we need asking for help. She's getting that stress reaction. It's not helping her body. It's not helpful, right? If she gets kind of stuck thinking about being resentful of her friends and religious community members and so on, how is it exaggerated? How is it she's blown this up bigger than it actually is? So I hate asking for help. Well, hate is strong. I'm the frigging one. So when I hear myself swearing, that's a cue to me as well to say, uh-oh, I'm blowing this up. I can't bear needing their help. So what's going to happen? They help me, I'm going to have a stroke because it's just too much to take. No. So it's like you can see that she's fused with those difficult thoughts and so on. So what I say, for her to say to herself, it's like, it is scary. It is upsetting, right? So the first thing is the quality of the voice. This is scary. I understand that. But maybe now it's my time to receive and be open to the love and compassion of friends and family. It's like, we all need each other, right? It's a cycle of life. Sometimes you're going to be the one that helps others. Sometimes they're going to be the one that's going to help you. And that's the spiritual level, the circle of giving and receiving. Again, being kind to oneself so that she can accept, she can get on the phone and say, please, can you help me out? Can you give me a ride? I'd really appreciate that. And they'd be grateful. Ooh, this is a big one. They say you're supposed to stay positive, but I feel awful, angry, helpless, filled with despair, and I'm afraid I'm making it worse. Okay, so first of all, feelings are normal. So you're not going to reframe a feeling. I feel awful, angry, helpless, and filled with despair. You don't try to change that. What you're changing is some of the core beliefs that are causing some of those emotions. I'm afraid I'm making it worse, right? Okay, so again, you can feel afraid. So it's stuck in this first phrase. They say you're supposed to stay positive. Wow, that's hard. What emotions follow this feeling? Oh, it's kind of resentment, frustration. You're not doing it right somehow, all this kind of tension. I don't think it's helpful. And then first of all, I just don't believe that you can stay positive. Like who has always kind of stayed in that perfectly happy state? What I see for myself and almost everybody else is that it's kind of this fluctuation, good days, good months, good hours, bad hours. So it's kind of up and down, fluxing, and that's normal. And I think it's just irrational. It's just not possible to stay positive. So the reframe, it's natural to have strong and negative feelings. First of all, just allow yourself the truth of the human experience. We're going to have the strong and negative feelings. I'm learning to comfort myself and ask for reassurance from others, right? So we stay connected. We stay smart about connecting with other people. I can work with my state of mind and that helps, right? Yeah. Look, I can still live my full life despite feeling a little bit flustered and upset at times. Right? So that's, again, a kind and wise, compassionate response. I hate feeling weak and helpless. I don't want everyone feeling sorry for me. Right? So this is, again, kind of an independent person. Right? What emotions follow that? It's like the sense of frustration and fluster and depression, which has a physiological effect. I hate this. I don't want this to happen. So you're kind of this sense of struggle, sense of trying to push down the ball in the pool. Is it exaggerated? Maybe. Yeah. And are you helpless? I think that's the exaggeration. And then you kind of think about it. I do like how kind and gentle my spouse or friend has become, right? So they care about you. What's it from their perspective? The people who reach out are so kind and generous. It's a privilege to receive the gift of their goodwill and love, right? So you can reframe it to be grateful for what you do have in terms of that type of support. Okay, so there's a number of ways that we reframe these difficult thoughts and emotions. Last one. This actually is not just for the family members, also for the person with the cancer diagnosis. I have to be the strong one, right? That's me. I'm the strong one. I've always been the strong one. That's me. I can't be anything else. I can't let my wife or husband or spouse, however you want to say it, know how I really feel. If I fall apart, that will make it worse for him or her. This is very common, and it comes from a good place, right? People are trying to protect the other person. They don't want to cause more stress because they're feeling badly and so on. But this just backfires in the biggest way possible. It creates a silo within the relationship, and it's all this opportunity to connect and support. And that's why I don't define the person by their diagnosis. Like, it's just a person, and the family member is just a person. It's just two people that are supporting each other during this journey. Now, one happens to have a cancer diagnosis, but let's not define people by diagnosis. It's like human beings are supporting each other. What emotions follow? It's just, well, I would say it's more like within the relationship. It's this kind of distancing between the two sides. It's not helpful. Ultimately, your partner or your friend can see through you that you're trying to put on a brave face, and you're also giving them the meta message that it's not, you don't want to talk about, you don't want to be vulnerable, you want to tell the truth. And so everyone puts on the brave face, and it's kind of this distancing. So it's unhelpful, exaggerated. If I fall apart, that will make him or her feel worse. Well, maybe, yeah, if they see you crying, they will feel a little bit badly in the moment, but it's not like you're going to cry forever. And it's not like they don't have the resilience to stay with that difficult moment. And ultimately, it will actually create this connection between the two of you, which is way better than trying to put on a brave face. So the reframe, it's best to be honest with each other about feelings. It creates more intimacy and is truly supportive. If I fall apart, how do I know it will make him or her feel worse? Maybe consoling me will make him or her feel better. That's what I would take away from this. Vulnerable, open connection with your loved ones. Yes, you have to choose which loved ones you're going to do this with, but at least one person where you can say how you're feeling. Be yourself and share whatever's going on. So that's a reframe of the I have to be the strong one persona. Okay, just to let you folks know, starting later November, probably early December, we're running a trial. It's called CancerPEP, 6 months of daily emails and these little PEP videos. And it's a very comprehensive program, including teaching around connection and relationships and so on. So we're hoping you guys are going to join our CancerPEP program at some point shortly. Thank you so much. CancerPEP.org is going to be the website. And again, thank you for the Canadian Cancer Survivor Network. Here are the contact information and the different social media addresses. And I'll finish there. We can turn off the recording and open it up to questions.
All righty. Well, thank you very much, Doctor. That was fantastic. And